not everybody was here last time, but
The October 23rd minutes are not in the book. The 15th are.
yeah, I noticed that.
I had to check on something on the 23rd just to make sure that it was done correctly, and indeed that we have. You can approve them now, except we only have 2 out of the 3. But that's why they weren't in the book.
Has everybody read over these?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I wasn't there on the 23rd. I mean, we can't approve those unless they're marked this year, right? I mean, you can't.
I'm not sure whether we approved those minutes or not last time. What did we say in the,
No, I'm talking
let's
about
see.
the 23rd.
yeah, I know. Let's see. Approved minutes of October 1 meeting. So this is October 15th. So those go back to the what, 23rd of November,
Yeah.
September?
15th and the 23rd.
Of October, the public hearing.
Oh. I don't think we've approved those. But we have approved the October one. It's right here. Well, let's approve the October 23, if everybody's good with that, minutes.
How about the October 15th one?
The hearing.
No.
There's only 2 of us here from the hearing.
So how about?
Yeah,
the-
we aren't here, that's right. That's the, I don't see where, I don't know if we've approved that. It
No,
certainly isn't.
we wouldn't have. I
Yeah.
mean, unless you did it at the public hearing, you wouldn't have.
Yeah,
No. So
okay.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes
Yeah.
of the October 15th, 2018 select board meeting.
Okay,
I'll second that.
okay, so that's done. Approve the minutes of the, you got that, Dave? Minutes of the October 15th.
I got the motion and the second. Those are approved, unanimous.
Yeah, October 15th. And now, this is confusing as all get
So
out.
do you want to wait on that?
Yeah, because
There's only 2 of us here.
we aren't here. But we can approve the last meeting. Wait a minute. No, it's only 2 of us here, too. Let's just leave it there. We got these 2 things to approve later. Okay? Because there's only 2 of us here that were there.
So you approved the 15th,
Yep.
and the 23rd you couldn't, or
The 15th.
haven't.
The 15th, yes,
Okay.
because there's only 2 of us here. We better to wait. Okay. So let's moving along. We're going to follow the agenda here. We're going to talk about the intersection, Three Corners intersection out here. We would normally kind of skip along because I can see snowmobile interests here, but because we have an audience, it's a good idea to have people hear what's going on here. So, and we're not going to have a lot of discussion about this tonight. Dave's got some information to tell us, and beyond that, I think we're going to wait as far as any very serious discussion until probably next meeting, because Martha's not here. We don't want to make any decisions about it without the full board. Okay? So, floor's yours, Dave.
So, this is on the agenda. I felt the need to just kind of put this out to the board. It has been, we put this forth, I think, October 1st. We were missing 2 people, now we're all the way to November 5th. We're still missing a person. So it appears that perhaps next meeting, but just know that from here on out, between now and New Year's, we start to get bunched up quite a bit. So this is somewhat of an important question to come to some sort of a resolution on. On that note, back on the October 1st meeting, and Mary, you weren't here, but I put out a series of estimates, both for the project. I kind of reviewed the old project and where that is and what the budget was. And I also came up with some budgeted numbers for the utilities, which, including the excavation and the conduit and contingencies involved, came to about $437,000 for that, but again, including excavation and contingencies. What I'd like to just let the board know, and this is kind of a little bit of a catch here, is that based upon the complexity of that pole, and the fact that there's upwards to 6 utilities involved on that, this is, I would consider, preliminary numbers, or kind of a preliminary draft. Green Mountain Power came up with drawings for that, and the other 5 have kind of followed suit. However, there's been a couple of things raised by VTEL, which I think is the most complexity out there alongside Green Mountain Power. First Light has brought up a couple things about where it's going to come up with on the pole, and Consolidated is actually already buried. So that adds an interesting little twist, because Green Mountain Power's design was kind of going to follow the sidewalk out by the mansion, but that's where Consolidated is buried. So that was an estimate based upon that without addressing any of the hiccups. So what I would like to just say is that as far as a number to go to the actual voters and say, here's a number, this is what we should vote on, and this is what, we want to borrow, I think that there needs to be additional work, including the utilities. The only problem is that to get 6 utilities together, 5 or 6 utilities together in one room and talk about what's going on, and to finish these drawings and to kind of solve some of the complexities, obviously is time consuming and is work. So I would hate to call in the 5 to 6 utilities and have them go through this process, and then we kind of turn around 2 months later and go, we're not really interested. So if we want to take the next step, I would say that we need to come to a moment that, yes, we are indeed interested, and we would like the utilities to take this next step, which would be really hone in on what this is going to take. Not too unlike preliminary and final design as far as, the intersection itself. So I have contacted the bond counsel that we use, or I've used previously on other projects. He did say that we could have essentially 2 articles. One article would be, borrowing for the initial project itself, if we so choose to put that, and we haven't really even finalized that whole discussion. If we were to choose to do that, we can put that on as an article. We can also put a secondary article on there that says, are we town interested in doing the utilities? Would you, enable the select board to further, research a price or an amount so that we can, finalize that number for, future bond vote or something. It's very general, but the language can be, the idea or the concept is capable. We're capable of doing that, but just know that, you know, I think these numbers are very good for us to decide how we feel about it. I think when the time comes to actually say, okay, how much do we want to borrow? I would dig deeper.
Right, and it's interesting that all of these estimates are independent of the other contractor or the other vendor.
Exactly.
So I agree with you, we don't really know if they're gonna be lower potentially or higher. And the other piece is we now know that some of the cabling or wires or whatever they are, fiber, really only run north-south. So they would potentially not enter into the conduit being buried. They would, I'm not sure where they would go. They made a new pole closer to the wall of the mansion or something like that. But, so I guess I'm concurring with you that right now we have information, but we don't have all the variations of that data. So it looks like we probably should ask the voters, what should we do?
The other piece of this is, you know, these are, you know, January is when we need to have the articles kind of in place. So just if we're interested in proceeding, this is something that we should take up.
Right.
It's sooner rather than later.
Sooner or later. Yep.
So you have figures that would go with that second article? A sum?
I think that you would word it more exploratory, like would you, you know, is the town interested in proceeding with utilities or researching utilities to, you know, something, I wouldn't put a sum out for them to vote on.
But I would be, as a voter, I'd be interested if the sum, if there was a sum attached to that article and it was $50,000, let's say. If there was a sum attached to it that was 500,000, well then no. I think there's gotta be a sum attached to it.
So I think that if it's an article, that might be something as far as the informational part of the article goes. I mean, I think it would be, you know, are you interested in, and again, I would have to talk to bond counsel, but are you interested in a 500 to 600,000-ish project? You know, whether, you know, how confusing or non-confusing that gets. But I think the concept would be, you know, you're asking to take the next step rather than, you know, can we borrow X amount as of, you know, tomorrow. One, I'm just not, I don't think we have a grasp enough on the numbers and the project itself without further work. But I think we should be sure we want to continue the work before we start pulling all these people in to kind of do that. I mean, if you guys have no interest, I mean,
No,
I'd hate to.
We've heard
it's-
that there's interest. That's the thing.
Yep.
We've heard that. So that seems repetitious or redundant to,
Then if the board says, yeah, I would like, Dave, you to spend your time and to sit with the 5 to 6 utilities and come up with a bigger number, then I know that we're on board and taking that step, and that's something I can do. I'm just not, you know, it's fairly time consuming, so I'm not sure, you know, where we, you know, before we do that, I'd like to know a little bit more of the feel.
well, it's a chicken and egg thing. Yes, I'm interested if it's X number. No, I'm not interested if it's, you know, several times higher.
So, which is why, so for the board level, you know, I think the number is fairly, I think the information is there to say, you know, are you comfortable with that ballpark number or not? You know, are you comfortable with something resembling $450,000? I don't feel comfortable, you know, I think that, you know, it's not $1 million and you know it's not 100,000. So I think that from a decision-making, a preliminary decision-making capability, I think that's there. for me to go to the voter and say, this is a $432,000 project, and, you know, everything's in there, and, you know, I'm not gonna come back to you a year and a half from now and ask for more. I don't know, I don't feel that, I don't think we've done enough homework on the project itself to warrant that. As Phil said, we've had 6 people put independent numbers together, one of which still hasn't gotten a clear number back to me, just based upon the complexity of it. And the others haven't addressed some of the issues that are there. So, you know, I think from a borrowing number, I think that it just needs to be clearer. And I think that, you know, I think that we ourselves want to know a little bit more before we, you know, just assume that this is, you know, this is how the process is going to work, this is what the project is made up with, and this is, you know, so let's just go forward. I mean, I think we could easily, if we take that tack, we could easily go to, you know, town meeting in March, you know, get to a point in June, and we were like, you know, uh-oh, you know, we should have discussed some of this a little bit before this point.
But couldn't the article say then, would the voters want to proceed with investigating, burying the utilities, keeping in mind that it could be upwards of $450,000?
I can't answer that without talking to council, but that would be the idea. Now, whether we can or can't stick the number in there, I don't know.
Legally, you might not be able to.
I don't know what we can do, but the concept that you're talking about is close to what I'm talking about as to how wordy and what we can and can't throw into that. I would have to hone that in with Paul Giuliani, the bond counsel.
Okay. Because I don't think it would be a very helpful article if there wasn't some kind of number in there.
I don't think, though, you want to confuse the article with a vote for that number to put towards the project. So I think you need to be careful about sticking a number in there and confusing the public and saying, you know what, I approved $525,000 last time, when, you know, what was that vote about? So we just need to be kind of careful there.
Yeah, I mean, right, the other complexity here is we don't even know where the trenching would go at this point. You know, we've always assumed when they're doing, you know, the intersection, that the trenching would come right through the intersection. That may not be the case. It may actually start along the wall, proceed south, and then cross by closer to the post office.
And that would affect the cost, is that what you're saying?
No, well, well, yes, it would affect the cost, because that's the trenching. But we can, I guess where I'm going is that there's a possibility that we can think of this as a separate project. It's the whole intersection project, but we don't need to do this, you know, at the same time they're paving,
Oh.
because that's one possibility. I mean, and that, I think that's where the hesitation is that we don't know all the details yet. And until we sort of take that step of getting everyone in the room and so on, so.
It's also possible you get 6 people in the room and they say, you know what, it'd be better. I mean, let's back up for a second.
Yep.
I don't think I think that the GMP plans provided for that north-south corridor to be buried.
Okay.
So the entire thing would be buried. There has been discussion with some of the utility folks that you could leave the north-south aerial and bury the stuff that's crossing. You could move the pole north,
Right. Out of
bury
green space.
the other 2/3 of the wires, and maybe save half the amount of money, just
Yeah.
because, you know, so there's also, based upon getting into the room and having a discussion, they may say, you know, we could still decide just to bury it all, but they may say, you know what, it might behoove you to maybe think about this. And I don't think we've taken that step either. We've had a drawing by Green Mountain Power, of which there's been, by 3 of the utilities, kind of some questions as to, you know, the hiccups that we're gonna run into based upon that drawing. I think that it's just, but I think that I know before I go out and take that and make that a priority myself in these utilities, I'd like to make sure that, you know, again, I'd hate to just, you know, because this is going to take, again, I went to these people, July, June, and, you know, there's still one hemming and hawing about how exactly it would be done, because that's fiber optic cable and it's going to be sliced in several places, and the loop, you know, that Green Mountain Power is taking, she may not like that loop, even though if that's the way Green Mountain Power goes, it's probably the way they're going to go. But I would, just knowing what it will take to get these companies together and have this detailed conversation, I would literally hate to then turn around and say a month later, you know what, guys, let's just call it a day and forget about it. I'd just like to have a conscientious decision that, yes, we are interested in doing this before we take on that work effort.
Is that good enough?
Okay.
I think that's enough discussion on that. We can move along. Pick up again next meeting. Try to figure out what to do next.
Do you want to ask for any public comment or not? We'll just wait.
Yeah.
Matt's gonna- I think we've done.
All right.
So it's the plan. Yeah. So I think we really didn't want to discuss this too much tonight, so let's just move along. Next thing would be the proposal by the Snowmobile Club to reroute the trail. So Yvonne and Roger, have you got a better map than we've got?
Researched it, and I have a bit map, and it's when we lost a portion of the trail where we walked across Munster Road. We haven't been able to come up with a good alternative for the rest of the way down. Okay, so from here, you can't get out through here anymore.
Oh, wait a minute. Is this your trail?
This is our
Yeah,
trail.
that's the trail, sorry.
Okay.
This is Webster Road coming down to the end of it here. So it's,
Okay.
you tell where
Yeah,
Gopher
yeah.
Rumbles is, it's past Emmeline Lane, which is right here. So you're down, a third of the way downhill.
Yeah. Okay, I see.
That's where we have crossed, and there's no longer permission here. You can't get permission from Combs. So, but we have one possibility is coming from Gilson Road, up and over and coming on to North's, which is the old Rumble house there. And then from there, probably no way out through here because it's so steep, but from there down and get onto property that's owned by Kevin Raymond down in there, where they were gonna do the solar thing.
Mhm.
He has that for sale, he's not anxious to have it tied up on a long-term thing, but he'd probably give us a year on it. And that's kind of what we're thinking here too, because we're not sure how North's really weigh in on this. If we came the downhill side of their house, and from there down to here, that would be probably the best scenario we could come up with. If we can't get through there, then we'd come out by Zophyr Rumbles and ask permission to come down and go in there.
So this is your trail also?
Yes,
Around.
yeah.
Yeah, so you're talking about going from here somehow across
Yeah,
through one of these people
yeah,
and hitting the
from
trail.
Darwin's, yeah.
And then having to make a connection from Webster Road back to our existing
We'd
trail.
still have to do that, but we wouldn't have to go
Right.
this far down the hill. We'd start-
Right,
So why aren't you just going here, and then there? Why are you
Well-
coming from over here?
That is a possibility. We try to eliminate all the road writing we can, because nobody wants to do it. But if we can't get permission to come over through here, then we say,
worst case scenario, come back to our existing trail here, drop down, and then make a connection back here.
So how much, let's say you crossed right here.
Yeah,
I mean, you entered here. I'm saying, enter the road here and go down here. How many houses are along that stretch of the road?
there's one up in there, 2, 3, and this is the old carpenter place up there.
think
There
this
are
is-
3 or 4.
There's only really 2 on the roadside, I would say.
right on the road,
Maybe 3 if you count north.
right.
Yeah,
Most of them are off the road.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it wouldn't be close to
Yeah.
anybody's house, but there may be one of them there.
Have you talked to the people involved to do this?
We talked to Derek Gasolina and talked to Norths, and they seem to say, yeah, we might be able to do that, but we don't have a definite answer from them or from Kevin on the board.
And I've spoke with these folks here, and we currently have permission from these folks here.
Roger, can you just remind me for the record that the reason why you're looking at Webster Road is because there's been a break
There
in
was a
the,
closure in the trail last spring,
where is the closure?
right where this one currently crosses, or did cross, Webster Road, so coming from Zilpha and Lauren
North
Ferris
side of West.
to Brian, Brian Parker's property. So
From,
just below Mike Pierce's. I don't know if you know where Mike Pierce lives.
from Perry's or Pierce's? From,
Zilpha Perry's, Perry,
yeah,
from her place, we crossed to Brian Parker's, thank you.
I don't think it's Brian's name on the deed.
Oh, right, his,
Boys, I don't know.
wife.
and that's been broken at Perry's or Parker?
Parker's,
At Parker's,
yep.
so they sold or they,
No,
They had
I
an
noticed-
incident there when they just said no more. It ran right across their lawn, and there were some things they didn't like about it.
Okay.
They let us go there. This is a pretty important trail to the state, to VAST, because it's their Route 5 kind of corridor trail, which runs kind of the length of the state. And if they don't have this tie through it, then the only other way is like through Bridgewater, and that's
and
closed all the time. So-
our club is currently paying for a $202,000 trucker that we just got last year. And this will affect the money we get from the state too in our grooming, and making payments on that. I might add, just in your consideration, we're hoping that it's a temporary year, not looking for long-term. There are many other clubs within Windsor County that ride roads. As Roger said, it's not our preference at all. And other towns throughout the state of Vermont allow us permission to share, I mean, we ride the side of the road. It's, again, not our preference, but in considering or given your thoughts, I mean, snowmobiling brings in over $500 million into the state in a year's time. So it's a huge impact on the economy. This is gonna affect not just Hartland, but other people.
just technical question, I'm sorry. So you, so Parker's got closed, you want to take now Webster down to which parcel?
The end of the,
It's almost, it's
just
the
about to the
end
end of the
of.
road,
To the end of the road?
yeah.
You don't know who, is there a property owner that you want to
At
pick
the
it up?
very end would be Hutchins.
How about Raymond's, did they say Raymond's?
That is
But, I
about-
mean,
yeah.
you're going half the way somewhere up behind Norris on the right-hand side of the road, aren't you?
Provided we can get in there and get permission.
So it's right about the Arnold property as well? That's on the south side?
Julie Arnold, we currently have permission from them to
Yep.
keep the trail, but we need that Brian Parker piece to make the trail connect there.
Okay.
And without the Parker,
Right.
actually, who is on them?
What, are there, does the Trail Association have any kind of rules of the road when you are riding on?
Post anything when
I mean-
Look to what Vass usually has it posted 25 miles an hour.
Okay,
in single file, I mean, you ride
Yeah.
with the
Stay on
traffic
the right side.
yeah,
And you're on the road, not next to it.
on the side of the road, yeah.
There's no next to it, anyway, on the floor.
Yeah.
Right.
Once through this.
I'm only looking at a map, Ron, but
Yes,
it seems like if you came onto the road there and you had permission from these people, why wouldn't you go down
because
just
where
a
we'd be
few
making
feet?
changes on their property to reconnect, Gordon, they have all kinds of bike trails on the property, and they're not interested in us moving their bike trails and changing their bike trails. Because they actually ride year-round, I don't know if you know that or not, I mean, they groom their bike trails in the wintertime and ride. They're heavy bike riders. And that would, yes, Chris Romero, that would ruin, well, I mean, because what we do, we go smooth, they have moguls and whatnot, so it's not, and they don't, and we'd be intertwined with their trails, so it's, they were interested in that.
So how much, length of the road, what, in miles, or a quarter mile? or-
Worst case scenario would be, when the slope goes down, it's not quite a half
I
mile,
was
but I
gonna say,
guess,
it's probably less than half a mile.
Yeah.
Less than a half, yeah.
yeah.
Less than a half mile.
Mhm.
We don't have any other places in town that the only place that we ride on it is just as you start up, old Town
Johnson.
Farm
Oh.
Road there, right? We go a little ways
Well, we
by
ride
the
a-
news there.
We ride a little tiny stretch, down off from Mount Hunker Road
Yeah,
onto Gilson.
Mhm.
We ride a little stretch there.
Yeah.
In all honesty, those are stretches that I avoid, but, you know, I like to ride right after fresh snow. I don't, if it's not snow, I won't go. I'm not gonna ruin my sled. So I do think, even if we have to ride road, it's gonna decrease the traffic, but, so there wouldn't be as much as, I don't think.
This is not a heavily used trail through there, so it's surprising that it isn't. It ties in, goes through North Hartland Dam and ties in with Hartford's Trail at the top of that hill, and so there,
I mean, that would be a major closure, without a doubt.
but it isn't, there's usually not a lot of snow out through the Chase Road and out, so people, you know, just go out there, ride out there and back from Hartland or something, that headed to.
When I look at this, the idea to me is that there's a number of different people you could ask if you started at that corner there to get down to Webster Road, rather than coming across here. Maybe you've done all this, I don't know what you've done, but
There is off
Well,
of,
I mean, they have no, oh, wait a minute, is that Dan? No. What's it? Tom Comstock.
this, there is somewhere down through here, and,
No
I think
log
that
or no grain.
Jerome knows about it, but this is, when it comes right into Trachtenberg, right near there, there is a log road somewhere down through here, I don't know. You know, either way, we'd have to go below one's house, and back out onto the road, so.
and so where's their house on this corner?
Yeah,
This
it's
is-
right on the corner.
Right, there's a house on one side, farms on the other side, and
Yeah, I
north.
think it's fairly low, I don't know, I can't really tell you.
It's sort of in the middle of their property.
Yeah.
So you need to be down below it?
That
Well,
was
we
what
don't-
they had told. They haven't really.
If we can, that would avoid this much road, is what we were trying to do. We were trying to get the least amount possible.
But I think that they told Gary that if they were approved, it would be below their house. And then that's why they started looking at coming up over, because there are log roads all the way through there, wouldn't take any construction going. But if people who ride four-wheelers up in there, I guess it's.
So you probably couldn't even go from the corner of North over to this trail, like right there? Because that would intersect some of the
Yeah,
bike trails?
you ride it like all hours of the day and night, and they got trails all over, so,
They're probably keeping thin and trim.
yeah, lucky them.
Powering their own machines. Well, I don't know.
So I don't know if you have more questions for us, and I would ask that you consider giving us a trial basis at the very least. And if it doesn't work out, then,
Well-
but hopefully you at least consider a trial basis
Yeah.
just to get us through this year to.
My basic thought is it's a really bad idea to have snowmobiles and cars on the same path, but at least
So do
that's,
snowmobilers.
Yeah.
what?
So do the
We would-
snowmobilers.
Yeah,
truthfully.
But if you were ever gonna do it, that would be a place, because it's a dead-end road, and,
Yeah, it's not much
Yeah.
traffic.
and it's just a few people, and they would be, the people that use the road would probably be quite aware of the,
Yeah, would you tell people, or would you have a sign, you know, snowmobile crossing, or snowmobilers on the road? Do you do anything like
There
that?
are signs that, we have sign guidelines through VAS, and there are signs that would be single file. I believe the signs mark single file, stay the way, exit left or exit right, or.
And
so
you put those up?
We would mark it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd have to.
Were you asking for signs for the snowmobilers or signs
Well, for the cars,
for the
actually.
cars?
That's what I'm saying, it's
Well, we
like,
have,
so they
anywhere
know.
there's a road crossing, we have a snowmobile crossing ahead. So we
Mm.
put one of those where we came onto it, and from there on, I mean,
Yeah.
it's just
Cars would see
not much
our signs
traffic.
too. I mean, the signs are 12 by 12. They're reflective from,
not a lot of traffic below, even below Zolfa's there, because there aren't any houses down there.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
well, seems like you need to come back in when you have something more figured out.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's-
I don't know. Do you have any thoughts about this?
Yeah, I would like to know the final plan, right?
Well, are you presenting the final plan? I mean, it sounds like you've
Well,
done a lot of work.
We don't know that we're gonna get permission from any of those. What we're saying is, okay, if we can go to them and say, well, the select board says that we can go down the road. I mean, somewhere we have to start with the
Yeah.
permission of it.
Yeah.
Oh, you need permission
Well,
to, before you go to them?
Not necessarily, but it makes a little bit better case for it. We say,
Oh.
the town will work with us on this. I mean, if we can say that. And if, you know, if we have to go back to them and say, okay, if you will do this, then we'll go talk to the town again, and they, you know, hopefully they will allow us. It's
Well,
your call as to
I-
whether.
I think it's probably true that we want to work with you guys. I mean, that's a true statement that you could say to the landowners.
Okay.
But
All right,
to just
so-
agree to something that we don't, is still in the planning stages, it's,
Yeah, it's a matter of, we don't even know if we're really gonna do it, and are we gonna do it from here down or from there down?
mhm.
well,
Right, so we can come back, we can chase it a little bit further and come back.
Yeah.
We'll be- all right.
in a sense, we sort of do need to know as far as making the other connection on the other end too, though, because if you were gonna say no, we wouldn't bother pursuing it further down the road with the other landowners.
Well, I
Right, I
think
mean-
we have a feeling that they wanna work with us, and so if
Yeah,
we can come back with a concrete proposal,
yeah.
When's the next one for a month?
they're 2 weeks.
So it would be the 20th, right? Or the 19th, yeah.
Oh,
2 weeks.
You know, if you wanted to go half a mile on Hartland Hill Road, I would,
Say what?
I said, if you wanted to go a half mile on Hartland Hill Road,
I didn't ask for that.
I know, it would be, or a lot of our other roads said,
Yeah, no, I
I think
understand.
you would not get a real positive response.
Oh, well, maybe we can save plowing costs and use the Hartland Quitchy Road.
Can you ride on the road when there's a lot of sand on it?
say that one
When
more
there's a
time.
lot of sand on the road, is that?
People do,
They'll go.
it's not great, because
Yeah.
it wears out your drags on your sled, I mean, it's not in our best interest. Do I? I could, but only after first snow, otherwise I'll avoid it
Yeah.
at all possible costs, you know,
Thanks, Roger.
so, anyhow,
Yeah.
thank you.
All right, thanks for coming.
So are they still proposing to go to,
I don't think they got this figured out.
They're gonna ask the landlord,
So at-
landowners.
They don't really know where they're gonna use the road.
at most down to the Hudson's property?
Yeah, it's-
Is that correct? I'm just trying to get the minutes right.
Right.
That's
They're
my,
gonna,
that's my sole purpose.
they're doing more research.
You have another question? I
Yeah.
mean, we have 40 days of trails open, but who's counting?
Well, Dave was trying to get a better idea of where you wanted to come back onto the road, but I think you don't really know, do you?
Worst case scenario would be at Zilpha Perry's. The trail is there already.
And going clear
on
down
one side,
pretty
and then
much to the
riding-
end.
Yes.
And then down to essentially the Hudson's, I just don't know the area, I'm sorry, I'm not,
Yeah, that's okay.
I don't know who's down there, so,
Yeah.
down to the Hudson's property.
That would be worst
more or
case
less,
scenario.
okay.
If we were able to gain access to Norse, that would cut that, I think, about in half, the amount of road riding.
Okay, I'm good.
It might be 40 days, but it might be 60 days till we see some snow.
Like we accustomed.
That snow will travel.
Okay.
You're getting hit by a snow wall, you don't like it.
Okay. Well, that's all. Well, next thing on the agenda is tax sale. Let's see, I see you wanted to keep this,
I think it can be, I just didn't feel the need to,
it's here.
that's fine, we've talked.
Okay.
I think, you know,
Well, why don't you, Dave, why don't you start off with your concerns, and I've got, somewhere here, I got a note from Pat, which I think will explain
yep.
the
So,
chairperson's, here.
as you know, we have tax sales scheduled for Thursday, November 15th. There was one of those parcels that went to the Board of Abatement. Parcel number 021-106-000. And the board decided not to abate, which is fine. And then they, not part of the written record, because the written record simply stated that they were not going to abate the taxes, but if you, and I think the minutes were in your packet, the minutes of the meeting kind of stated some extraneous discussion revolving around this particular parcel. And there was a recommendation made in the minutes from the Board of Abatement, essentially to the Select Board, that the Select Board essentially hold off the tax sale for a year, and to enable the property owner to kind of find out a way as to how he was gonna, or she was gonna rectify this. So in order to, in my mind, cleanly go to the tax sale, I think that even though you know, the Board of Abatement did their duty on the decision on the abatement, I think it would be right to simply answer or to field the recommendation from the Board of Abatement that was to the Select Board, and have the Select Board render their thoughts as to what, you know, that recommendation. Based upon that, you did give me back on July 2nd, you gave me authority to go to tax sale on 20 properties. This one was one of them. But I think that if you resolve this recommendation and essentially reestablish my authority to go to tax sale with this property, simply would help in the process and moving forward. That being said, I have read the minutes. I think that there was some confusion as to the role of the Board of Abatement. I think that certainly I don't think, you know, there was one discussion there based upon a certain set of facts. As your delinquent tax collector, I can tell you that there has been in the past, 2012, a letter from the property owner asking, essentially stating the same statement that was made to the Board of Abatement, you know, asking to You know, the board's helped to resolve his situation. That was in 2012 when he was 2 years delinquent. There was an effort made in 2015 to get him on a payment plan. Bankruptcy did follow soon after, but, you know, bankruptcy ended in 2017, and there was no effort to come forth to the town to make amends or to resolve the problem. At this point, we're looking at 8 years of delinquencies, an extreme amount of money. I would simply state that there is also a process in play here that involves 6 other parcels going to tax sale at this point in time, one of which also has a hardship that is not getting, you know, has not had this discussion with, you know, a separate board. They are going on the 15th, and, you know, that is not stopped, and that person will be affected equally as hard to obviously lose a house at tax sale, as will the other 5 properties. And then behind that, we have another 42 properties delinquent, and I think it would be very hard to, you know, continue to move forth, you know, in the process that we've been trying to move forth with the delinquencies, if we allow essentially the biggest and baddest to, you know, room to, you know, after 8 years, more room yet to kind of figure this out. Last thing I'll say is that the select board back in March did give me fairly direct direction as to how to proceed or what your wishes were to proceed with delinquent taxes. I would say in my role I've followed through on that, and to simply faced with one person coming forward and having a, you know, a more direct talk, and kind of finding room around the process, I think, is detrimental to where we're trying to get in the message that was delivered to me back in March.
True.
So what I feel needs to happen would be a motion, essentially either accepting the recommendation or to not accept the recommendation. And if you accept the recommendation, then you should withdraw my authority to take this person to tax sale.
Mm-hmm.
If you do not take the recommendation, then you should reaffirm my authority to take this person to tax sale.
So these minutes to me are a draft, because we never voted on them to accept them.
Who's we, Mary?
The Board of Abatement.
Mhm.
So to me, unless they're voted on, and if I had seen this, if this was up for a vote, let me say that, I have seen them. If this was a vote, I would say, I would vote against it, and probably everybody would, because this is not an accurate
So
statement.
based upon certain procedure, you have 5 days to post draft minutes to the public. That has occurred. This has been seen in public, and I think it has created some confusion, and I think that by responding affirmative or negatively to that, I think would alleviate any confusion that might be out there.
Okay. But these actually should be stamped, you know, draft, or that would also have been helpful. All right, so we need to make a motion that we do not recommend that the tax sale be stopped at this time.
And reaffirm my authority to take this parcel to tax sale.
I just, you know, as hard as all of this is, I think, Dave, you highlighted 2 things that as I thought about it, number one, the Board of Abatement made a decision not to abate the taxes. And second, that we don't have evidence of a track record that any type of partial payments toward the full payment have been successful in the past. So I think we have to make a motion. I feel, that if Mary were to make that motion, I would second that.
But also, I feel that this is again back to the Board of Abatement, and that decision was made by the board.
No, I mean, it clearly tossed the ball to our court.
And that was unfortunate.
I'd like to make a motion that we do not accept the recommendations of the Board of Abatement, and that we give Dave Ormiston, that we do.
To stop the tax sale. That's
I think that actually is an incorrect statement. I don't think.
That's what I'm saying. It's incorrect to begin with, but
Yeah, so
it's
I
there,
don't
is
think
what
we-
you're saying.
To stop the tax sale, and to give David Ormiston, the tax collector, the authority to go ahead with tax sales.
Is that clear, Dave? Is that clear?
Give me just a second, I'll read it back.
Oh, boy.
So what I had was, the motion was to not accept the recommendation to stop the tax sale and give the authority to Dave to go to tax sale. Is that,
But that almost
Close.
says that almost sounds like the recommendation includes your authority to go to tax sale, so.
Well, do we even need to sort of say
We need that second part?
part two? Yeah,
I think you should reaffirm my authority to go to tax sale, yes.
Okay.
okay.
Or you can do it in two motions if you like.
I think that would probably be a little clearer.
Okay, so
All right, I'll withdraw my motion, feel
No,
free.
it's not, you're not withdrawing it. You're
Yes,
just,
I am.
no, you can't.
You're
Nope.
inserting a period.
I'm all done.
Okay, that's okay. I wish we could somehow point out that this, I don't remember any such
I
thing.
know, I don't know how that got in there.
Oh, it was, yeah,
was it
whether, I mean, I know it was put in there. You know, I think the person that put it in left the room.
No, the last sentence Gordon's talking about.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
So if I can, when you get back as, when the Board of Abatement again adjourns, you can
Yeah.
discuss this, but at the moment, it appears as though there's been a recommendation and, in order to, considering we're 10 days away from a tax sale, I think that the Select Board should, based upon the written minutes, either accept or not accept the recommendation.
All right, so then can you just put a period in there and then say the board, whatever, it's the thing about you.
Well, are we breaking these into two or?
Can't we just do 2 sentences?
Dave, can you read it one more time? Let's try to wordsmith it here and
I'm
get it.
not sure that makes one motion, but
Okay, all right.
I
Then we'll
believe
have to
there
do
is a
two.
motion by somebody out there to not accept the recommendation to stop the tax sale. But in reading that back, you may want to think that it's to not accept the recommendation from the Board of
From
Abatement.
the Board of Abatement, right.
Yeah.
And as referred to in the September 10th document.
Mhm.
And that,
So why don't you make it two, why don't you stop it there?
Okay.
For the period. So,
I'll make a motion
yep,
that the board.
do not accept the
No,
recommendation.
no, 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 no.
Oh, I'm
That's,
s-
this is the second motion. I think
oh,
we're
okay. Who made the first one?
Matt. Unless he actually wants to withdraw it.
Did anybody second it?
Yes, Phil seconded.
I'll second it.
Do you feel under duress?
No.
Okay.
Way too difficult.
It seems
So,
good.
do I understand this correctly? Matt has made the motion to not accept the recommendation from the Board of Abatement to stop the tax sale
Mhm.
as referred to in the September 10th.
2018 Board of Abatement hearing minutes. Draft minutes. It should be draft minutes.
Is it the September
10th,
10th?
2018 Board of Abatement hearing draft minutes.
The I talked to the chair a couple of different times, and she has no memory of making any such recommendation.
Yeah.
And I've got this many notes in that regard. I think that was a false statement. I don't know how that got in there.
Well, this will clear it up, you know, if it's false or
Well-
not, but we have no recourse to,
Yeah, I guess so.
Mm.
I mean, we have a written document, that's what,
You know, unapproved minutes.
yeah.
I said they are unapproved
Right,
minutes.
right.
So, who gave the motion, the second motion, to give the authority to Dave
Me.
to go to tax sale?
Do you need someone to second that?
I do.
I will.
Unanimous?
Yeah, it's unanimous. We've been trying to leave names out of this just to, not that we're hiding anything, but I hope that the involved person understands that there's a full year after the tax sale to retrieve the property. So, does that cover it? Can you, if we're gonna move along on this tax sale issue, can you explain this code enforcement and building standards?
Yes, actually. So, and this is just gonna be, I'm not gonna try and get too far into the weeds on this, but in preparing for this discussion and for the tax sale, I did drive out to Fort Brook Road and the vicinity of this parcel and a couple other parcels. And the parcel is on an extremely steep slope, as is other parcels in that vicinity. And I would just point out that I have seen land use regulation of sorts in not only the state of Vermont, but in most other towns in Vermont come about particularly because of what I saw on Fort Brook Road. It just makes for fire apparatus and first aid vehicles extremely difficult to get to development such as this. And what I would say is that one of the, and I understand I'll try not to divulge too much into the weeds, but I understand a lot of the philosophical arguments for and against land use development. I will just say as a town, there are some basic structures that we should try and strive for. And I think that there would be an expectation that we be able to respond to these calls. And in the flip side, I think that there needs to be some understanding of what's going on out there and how easy or not easy it is to respond to some of these calls based upon the development that's occurring. Secondly, I would say in the neighboring parcel, there is clearly some debris, I would call it trash, being buried on this parcel. And it is on an extremely steep slope, and that slopes towards Route 5.
Route 12.
Route 12 and the housing developments and housing that line Route 12. And I would be wary of, the environmental degradation and the folks that are downhill from that. And again, I think that, this comes where the first one was kind of building standards. This is a code enforcement. Most, if not all, code enforcement in town falls upon me, and my ability to really follow or track this is little at this point in time. And I think that is something that down the road we should probably take more serious.
So Dave, are you asking for any immediate backing or enforcement?
No, I think that this will kind of dovetail a little bit with the town manager's update on just some of the bigger picture stuff. I think that ultimately we need to keep our eye out on. I think that this is kind of I think it's a sensitive subject, but I think it's certainly something that we need to be more aware of. Again, I look at, I think this, I'm coming at this, and whatever I would end up proposing, I think would be very simplistic to what I think has been discussed in the past, but I would come back to, again, the structure or the integrity of the entity, which is the town, to really kind of function. I think that there's some basics that we need. Mm-hmm. I think one of those is understanding where the development's occurring, and obviously the assessors, I think, are grappling with some of that now. I think that we see it in the roads and some of the development that's occurring and where it's occurring. But certainly, there is, I would throw first aid response into that discussion as a concern, and just being able to access some of these places, and the code enforcement, obviously, I do think there's an element. I think I've brought up illegal trash dumping, which is kind of obviously over the edge of the road, as in Grout Road, and some of what we saw last winter. But again, what I saw up on this property certainly would fall. This is kind of a I think a little bit more of a premeditated process, and I think that there is. By the time it costs the town money, and there is a monetary cost to us for not doing something as well, and I think that we've seen that in our past. And I'll be honest with you, you know, as far as this particular parcel that we just discussed and having to take that on at a tax sale, if we have to take that on, concerns me. And I think that, you know, will code enforcement solve all our issues? No, but, you know, to get to a point where a particular property, you know, is, after the amount of time that we've had with this one being delinquent and having to be in this situation is, you know, there's a potential cost to that. And, but I think that, I just think it's something that, as we move forward and look at the big picture, where that fits in with the big picture would be my discussion.
You want to talk about the process a little bit more? I see you've got one more.
Yeah, this next one, you need to make a motion as well. This would be, if nobody, if there is a particular property that does not meet the taxes owed along with the interest and penalties, that the town make a bid for that property so that we hold our, you know, we protect our interest in that. What we need to do is, it should not be me, I'm the delinquent tax collector, but one of you perhaps be delegated by a motion to be at the tax sale and bid on a property if so needed.
Do we have some mobile homes on the list that are ungrounded, I guess? I don't know if that's the right word.
They don't have property with them.
They don't have property with them?
I think they have, I think in this case, they so far have been resolved.
Okay. You don't have it.
I think we had, I'd have to go through the list again, but we had one, and again, this would go back to my argument prior with this particular property, but we did have somebody that, faced with a tax sale, did pay it off.
Mhm.
So, and in this instance, that's what happened, and that has been resolved. Yeah, there's always a particular property you don't have to bid on, but you should leave yourself, you should, in order to protect your interests at the tax sale, you should name somebody that would have the ability to bid on your behalf.
Yeah, well, what I was getting at is that I know from experience in the past that ending up owning a mobile home that has no value isn't necessarily a good thing for the town. But I don't know that we'd have any choice. But if you did have a bidder who, even if it didn't meet even if it didn't cover the taxes and the penalties, it still might be better to let that bidder have the property. That's what I was getting at.
So in actuality, I think the statute for other properties does not allow that, but with a mobile home, it does, according to 5259. But again, in this particular case, I don't think we have that.
Well, that's good.
I don't think we're faced with that.
That's good.
The parcel listed under 2A, I believe, based upon our title search, the land is attached to the mobile home in this case.
Mhm. Okay. So we're looking for a motion here that says,
You need to find somebody who's interested first.
Right. I don't know.
What time is the tax sale?
11 a.m.
Right in the middle of the day.
I know, I don't wanna take off work. Phil is retired. Martha's retired. I think they're likely candidates. And Martha's not here.
I would elect Martha since she isn't here, but, yeah, I can do it.
You can?
Yeah, what's the date?
I think that's a good idea.
Thursday the 15th.
Oh, Martha would be real appreciative of given that job.
I don't know. Thursday the 15th, you said?
Yes. I need a motion.
Okay. I make the motion, sorry, Phil, to delegate or appoint, how do you want this?
That sound, you good so far?
His name's Phil Hobby.
I think, I'm still looking at choosing this correct word. Delegate Phil Hobby. to be-
You said appoint.
I changed my mind. Just cross it out. To delegate Phil Hobby to be the select board's or the town's representative, what do you want? Town's representative at the tax sale on Thursday, November 15, 2018, 11 a.m. You can get this. To represent the town's interest, or how do you do that?
Oh my,
Come on, keep up.
isn't there a period in there somewhere?
No.
God.
Are you done?
Delegate Phil Hobby to be the town's representative at the tax sale on November 15th.
2018.
Oh,
2018. I think we've learned
at
that
11 a.m.
these are very important, these motions, and we have to make them very clear.
At
To
11 a.m.
represent or to protect, how about to protect the town's interest? Is that how?
You used representative already, so Phil Hobby to be town's representative at the tax sale on November 15, 2008 at 11 a.m. to bid on property if necessary.
Okay.
I'll second it.
I guess we're all in favor.
Yes.
He volunteered and I go along with it. so
Who's seconding?
Thank you.
It's
I
unanimous.
did. You're welcome.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I owe you.
it's unanimous.
Hey, I have to be the liaison to Hartland, so
Oh, gosh, I missed that, didn't
that got me the last meeting.
I? Yeah.
Oh. What time is the sale?
11 a.m.
You could skip to that.
No, I don't know.
Okay, probably this. Number 5.
Okay. Let's just find a picture.
It's on the back of,
Insurance.
no, I'm thinking we should skip to 5. Are you here for number 5? Either?
The sculpture?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just got it. We've got the picture.
Yeah, that's the same.
All right, so we'll take that up next. We're, you all set, Dave, on this tax sale stuff?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, all right. So we have a proposal to put a piece of art, near the community garden on the Foster Meadow property. And,
Yeah,
so,
that's
we,
fine. So y'all have a
so,
picture.
will you tell us your
And then
name?
on the back, do you have on the back here, there's a paragraph that, I don't don't know if any of you know Jay Mead.
Yep.
He actually sculpted it, and he's been a Hartland resident. And there's 16 feet between the community garden and the pathway, and it would be closer to the garden, but right in that spot there.
On the back side of the garden. is what you're saying.
Back side of the garden, probably about 2 to 3 feet away from it. And, you know, then it would be 10 feet to the path. It would be on a sonotube, so it would be elevated by about 8 inches off the ground. And then bolted into the sonotube.
Can you tell us your name?
Todd
There
Alexander.
you
We met, you remember, for marking trails.
go. Okay, that's pretty familiar.
Yeah. What else? And I'd probably have a plaque. I'm doing this kind of, my mother was still alive now, but I was gonna do it when she died, and then I'm like, why wait? Might as well do it while she's alive and can actually see it. But it wouldn't be a memorial or anything. It would be a plaque. The name of the sculpture is Dormant. And I would put artisan J. Mead on the plaque, and the fact that it's made with recycled material. And that's pretty much just it. No real names or anything.
Yeah, we have kind of a policy that we don't,
Yeah, that's why I would not.
that's, what you said is okay, but not dedicating it to someone.
Yeah, so that's why I wouldn't. And she's actually the type that wouldn't want her name or anything on it anyway, so it's just a gift. I've lived in the community for over 20 years, and it's a gift to the community. And it's to help the artisan also, the local artist. But if I am to do this, I'd like to do it before winter, and you kind of need someone to say yay or nay. I've talked to the rec, I've talked to the community garden, Megan. She seemed to go, but nobody wants to make the decision to have it done or not. So I just brought it here for you guys to just give me a yay or nay, or whether it can be done or not.
Todd, where does Jay live, or where is his studio?
Jay lives in Norwich now, but
Okay.
he had lived here at Cobb Hill, in the
Okay.
community there for 12 years.
Does Jay have any other public sculptures?
He does. He has a few in Woodstock at that
Sculpture Fest.
yeah.
Yeah.
And he's had some in Lebanon at that what's it, Avon.
Ava?
Eva.
Gallery.
And he's done a few. He worked for Cover most of the time, so like most artists, and it's not his full-time job.
So when you look at the community garden face on, like, so that the community garden sign is right.
Yeah, and they got the trellis or whatever the gateway there. So you'd be looking straight through the gateway to the back of the garden, and it would be there.
Oh,
So when you're looking through, you straight back.
so it's kind of, the
Yeah.
trellis kind of frames
And
it.
it probably wouldn't be actually in the garden, it would be just probably 2 feet on the back side of
So is there any concern that by the gardeners that it would impede their,
it. Shade or anything.
no, not shade, just access? They're dragging garden carts.
Yeah,
or-
that's why I'd probably back it up, and the edge of the garden, I'd still have 3 feet for a wheelbarrow or
I see.
whatever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Or a lawnmower or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
So it'd be, but there's 16 feet there. I mean, this is fairly large, but we can easily give the garden 3 or 4 feet, and then the trail you'd want to be away from that too, and there'd be plenty of space between the pathway.
And then where would the plaque go?
The plaque would just go in front, just between the garden and the sculpture itself.
It's not affixed to the sculpture.
No, it wouldn't. It would, it'd probably be just a post cut on a slant and a plaque on the post.
Yeah, that's what, that's the same type of signage that the public sculptures at Dartmouth are.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I
It's
just
a-
saw some, yeah.
Yeah, on that part.
Yeah.
Longevity, I mean, do you see this forever, or do we
I
have?
think I would volunteer for the maintenance, whatever it takes, and if we end up in 10 years decide or to get rid of it, we'll get rid of it. I mean,
Okay.
that, you know, maybe just talk to someone here and we'll see what we need to do. I'm not overly concerned about making this last for 100 years.
Right. Yeah, yeah. And is it going to, how is it going to weather?
I think this is roofing, this is actually a barn roof, so it should weather pretty well.
Yep.
Must be
That
the,
too, we may have to discuss and, you know, I paint, so I would know how to fix it if it ended up starting to rust or something. We can deal with it then, but for right now, it's galvanized, it should be fine for
Okay.
a few years.
We don't have any public art, do we?
What's that?
I don't think we have any public art.
Well,
I've actually built a couple benches along that same trail already. They've been there for about 4 years now, 3 or 4 years.
the wall
But this is
that's
just
behind the
something else.
library. It's sort of public art.
Todd, where,
You know what I'm talking
where
about?
was
Yeah.
the, where was it to go?
Between the community garden and, you know, there's a path that goes all the way around and the path. So there's 16 feet there. It would be, we were saying we probably want 4 feet from the community garden. And then you probably have, what was that, 8 feet from the path.
So between the garden and then right after the path, there's a backyard, there's trees and stuff there. So
Yeah, not
between
there.
between the track and the garden
Yeah,
itself,
yeah.
but on the recreation side, not
On
the,
the
not the library side.
Yes.
Gotcha.
And it's kind of, it is tucked in there a little bit. There are a bunch of trees and
Yep.
I don't think it would stand out that much from,
Pretty radical. Public art in Hartland.
well, I was thinking the library first, but it is a seed and it's community garden
Yeah,
and it fits better.
Yeah, I get that.
And it's recycling and everything else. And if there's a big protest and people start having riots, I will take it out.
So Jay Mead made this, right?
Yes.
Did he direct how it's supposed to be displayed?
I was talking with him and I was telling him I really don't want to just sit in there, but some kid would come over and knock it over or whatever. So he's the one that said we can definitely do it with a sonotube, fill it cement, have the rods come up, and he takes a panel off the thing and is able to bolt it in so it doesn't move anywhere. And he said he seemed to think it would look cool if it was suspended up by 8 inches or so. So I guess the sonotube would
I'm just going back to my experience with seeds, and I've never seen one stand on its end like a
It
rocket.
is art, you have to have some.
It is art.
It's supposed to be
I'm into realism.
Okay.
thought-provoking
Yeah, there you
kind of
go.
thing.
Every time you look at it, you could think,
So we could have
That's
a,
no.
we could each go and
Well, I
write a
was
little
just-
essay or something about what we saw. That-
When you said some kid might tip it over, I thought, well, that might be a big improvement.
what?
Oh, well, okay. Have you heard enough?
I could see a seed standing on it.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would like to make a motion
Mm,
that we accept this piece of art, dormant, to be placed by the community garden in Hartland with gratitude and thanks.
The price is right. Town will have to pay anything.
We could become a mecca for public
I'm
art.
sure I'm waiting for Martha.
Would you like to wait for Martha?
I would.
Oh, you would. But that, he's trying to get this done before,
It's not gonna freeze up in 2 weeks.
I think we're
Can always
waiting
use it.
for
He's
the
always-
full board.
You can always use a jackhammer, break through the frost.
How heavy is this thing?
It's pretty heavy. I haven't really moved it, but it takes a little effort.
Yeah. I personally am thrilled that there's gonna be, hopefully, if we all vote on it,
Well, that's how
hopefully.
it kind of goes. There's about half of the people are thrilled, and the other people are like, I don't see it. But most people aren't. This is the worst thing ever. I mean, I'm at a point now where, yeah, I'd rather just have a decision and either leave it or do it. I feel bad for Jay, his sense of it probably won't happen then.
Well, wait. Could you wait for 2 weeks for a full board?
Yeah, I mean, if we make it 2 weeks, we'll still get 60-degree weather. It's getting close. I know the next couple of days actually are not going to be too bad. It's just getting that initial sonotube in, and then after that, who cares? But
Yeah, I see.
Yeah, you'll be able to mix up a little cement. I don't know how big a lump you're putting in there, but put some, ground will be warm, put some hay around it and it won't freeze.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Put some hay on it.
Might even germinate.
I think it's wonderful, and I hope you feel encouraged, because I think we could do some arm twisting if needed.
Yeah, I like the idea of that space, which is pretty much everything going on there. I mean, there's soccer, kids soccer, and there's baseball, and there's gardens, and there's library, and so I think it would be a good space in town to have something like this.
How, I haven't been paying real close attention. How much has the garden been used like this last year?
I don't know.
I think it's, I mean, I see people over there during the summer.
Yeah.
I haven't gone over to look at how many plots are used, but
Just thinking
I
this,
think there's 3 or 4 people that use it a lot, and it's just a few that kind of started.
something like this, I suppose, might encourage people to use the garden.
yes, I think you're right.
Or use the paths to
On the right
walk,
side.
you know.
We could soon have public art all over the place. Mm-hmm. Could draw people into town.
Yeah.
In the new green space, we'll put some.
Yes, yep.
We got plenty of
I think it's great, and I hope 2 weeks, what?
We have plenty of people in Hartland.
So in 2 weeks, we will definitely make a decision.
Do I have to come back, or you guys will figure it out?
We'll put it on the agenda, and, right, Dave? And we'll make a decision,
Martha, Mary can explain the whole thing to Martha, I'm sure.
yeah.
Won't be a problem.
You don't want to sit through another? Well, I appreciate you coming
All
in.
right, no problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. So I guess who calls me then in 2 weeks?
I'll send you an email, Tom.
Oh, you will, all right. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Okay, so we got, oh, Michael.
And there was one.
Bing!
No?
Just checking.
Chased everybody off. Next.
Talk about insurance?
Wait,
So,
I just have to interrupt. Where's the chocolate?
You're not on it anymore.
so
I asked that question.
You
I got a-
already did?
I got a good explanation.
You did? What was it?
He eats too much chocolate.
So you guys have like a piece or two, and then for the next 2 weeks, I eat it all. So,
What? You do?
No, we had trick or treaters, 31st was a couple days ago.
I've decided that I'm trying to eat Cliff Bars instead of Hershey Bars, so I've,
You're free to do that, Dave.
no, but you know, when they're sitting in the area and I just in like at a crossroads as to what to do next, it always seems to be I grab for a Mr. Good Bar there. And then
Okay.
another, and then another,
Okay.
and a couple more.
I do understand that dynamic, so.
So I mean, I can go back to it, but I just, you know,
No,
I was
no.
like, you know, just,
Taking a break.
I just need to purge for a little bit.
Yeah, okay.
Insurance, is that
Yes.
what we're doing?
Who is MVP?
It's MVP. It's the only other insurance available in Vermont other than Blue Cross Blue
That's the
Shield.
one you want to look
Well,
at.
MVP insurance.
didn't even know there was somebody else.
So, Phil, you weren't here last budget year, but last year, through the budget season, we talked about health insurance for the employees to an extent, actually. And at that point in time, I was just a couple months into it. We were kind of into the audit and some other things going on, and just wasn't really a good time to start messing with insurance. So we're still crashing a little bit into it this year, but we're in a better position. We took going into this year's budget, I had Martin spend some time looking at this last year during budget season, and I would say it again this year. The town has historically had the platinum, recent history has had the platinum plan, which is the best plan out there. It's been my experience that the gold plan, which is the next one down, is a more commonly offered health insurance by employers. So we first started out looking at just the Blue Cross Blue Shield gold plan, and there was a cost savings. Of course, going from the platinum to the gold plan, there is a larger deductible for the employee, and there's also a larger potential out-of-pocket expenses for the employee as well. MVP for years was always more expensive than Blue Cross Blue Shield, and last year and this year, and now they are much more competitive and cheaper. So in looking at the gold plans and putting Blue Cross Blue Shield and MVP side by side, MVP is cheaper. The total cost savings in going from one to the other runs upwards to about $45,000 to $50,000. Based upon that, I would like to move the employees from the gold to, from the platinum to the gold, and from Blue Cross Blue Shield to MVP. There is a second part of this that I'll get into in a minute, but that's essentially the basics of what I'm looking to do.
What is the, Is there a cost to the employee today for the insurance, or does the town cover the entire cost?
So that was the second part I was gonna get into.
Okay.
So how I thought I was gonna help us tremendously last budget year, so there is a cost to the employer.
Yep.
And we do something unique here in Hartland. It is based upon a percentage of their pay. So last year, I think it was like 2%, 3%, 2, 2.5, and 3%. 2 for a single, 2.5% for a double or a couple, and 3% for a family of the person's pay.
Yep.
So I said, okay, I'll raise that by a percentage, and I did some quick math. I'm like, I'll get the employees to a 10% contribution kind of across the board, because at the time, the employees were only contributing at most 6%, which I also found to be an overly generous
Yeah.
contribution on behalf of the employees.
Yeah.
So I raised it a percentage, and it went from like 5.5 to like 6.5%. So this year, to get to the employees to the 10%, I'm also looking at moving them off, detaching them from the whole pay idea, and simply have them pay 10% of the premium.
Right.
And therefore get us to a cumulative 10%
Okay.
of the premiums. They also, it detaches it from the salary, and it also allows them to understand, you know, if Blue Cross Blue Shield or MVP raises it by 8%, well, they're gonna notice that. If it's only a 4% increase, there's a little bit more direct lineage between the employee and what the premiums are. Now they just, you know, last year they got like a 2% increase in their pay, and then 1% went to the increase, and,
Yeah.
you know, it was kind of buried. So I just think it's a little bit more standard, but it's.
Do we have a number in mind of what the employee benefits are as a general percentage? You know,
I don't have that for you tonight, but
Yeah.
I have that available. So
Right.
yes, I can tell you what, per employee, what the benefit percentage is.
I mean, I assume if we rolled in FICA, health insurance, and what else do we?
Well, we have dental, we have long-term disability.
Yeah.
We also have life insurance, $50,000 for full-time employees.
Okay, so we're racking up, we must be in that 25 to 30 something percent of their salaries going toward benefits today.
You know, I was just looking at it today, I'm gonna say excluding though the FICA and Social Security. So looking at Social Security, FICA and wages is maybe 800 to 850,000, and then benefits is another 200,000 maybe. We're about 1.3 million for payroll altogether.
And it's also a double whammy if we change plans to a more expensive deductible and at the same time ask them to contribute more out of their salary.
So interestingly enough, so I actually had thought that through. We were gonna change them over to the plan in January, because we need to do it on the calendar year. We only have open enrollment
This time
once
of
during the year, and it's now between November and January 1st. Second part was to change to detach them from, because at the moment, we've got them budgeted through this fiscal year with the contribution coming with their pay, change that July 1st. Interestingly enough, it's a very distinct, I don't think we've done all the math, pretty close, but I think there's a distinct similarity between if you go to the lower plan, in particular MVP, you get very close to what they're paying already.
Okay.
So if we were simply to go from the platinum to the platinum, then absolutely, I've got it right here, all but 3, well, everybody but 1 would see an increase. other than the one, there would be two others that almost stay the same, maybe $1 or $2 increase, and then the rest, there would be a definitive increase going from the percentage of pay to the premiums. But by going to a lower premium, you're almost going sideways. Does that make
Sure.
sense?
Well, it does make sense, but ultimately, the employee could have more out-of-pocket expenses during the course of the year
Yes, they will.
because we've changed plans.
Yep.
Yeah. And the other piece, and forgive me for just looking for background, how do we handle the single-person policy versus the family person? Do we acknowledge everyone is equal and they pay one amount, or is there really a different benefit if a person is a family person and?
Yep.
And that's not fair.
So if you are a single family member versus a family member, then it is, we will pay for your,
Yep.
we will pay for what you essentially
Right.
need.
Yeah, I don't like that. Yeah, I'm more familiar with a flat amount that is equal to something in there, and they can go shopping for their benefits and choose a family, or take it as a credit toward a pension plan or something, or buy life insurance, or buy more life insurance.
So how this has been set up with the exchange, and I've seen few do this because of the complexity to it, and I would say we're not set up there yet,
Yeah, well,
Is
I
not-
understand the complexity, but.
is not necessarily between the single and the family, but simply, we will pay for you to have, say, the gold plan. So whether you're single or family or double, this is
Yeah.
how much, we're gonna provide the gold,
Okay,
period. If you choose to have the platinum, great, but you need to pay the difference.
I see.
If you
Right.
want to go with the bronze or a really high deductible plan, which can enable you to have a health savings account, then fine, you can take that and we will pay the difference between the gold plan, single, double, or family, whatever he is,
I put it into the health savings account.
and you can put it into the health savings account. I don't
Right.
think we're there yet.
No,
So,
Yeah.
so to come back to it,
Yeah.
the default would be, this is what we're gonna provide. If you want more, that's fine. If you want less, we're not gonna do anything for you, and the default kind of becomes the gold plan. I think
Right.
more people do it that way, but
Right.
we successfully did it in Norwich, but I think we just, I think that's too much to take on at this point in time.
Sure. I just smell lawsuits when with that disparity, you know, because I've been in an institution, obviously, at a slightly different scale, but went through all this, so. And do we recognize a gay couple as well?
We do.
Okay. Good. That's one less thing. Okay. I guess I'd be willing to go along with this now with the idea that we look at it that more complex way of doing it, but in my mind, much more equitable in the future.
Is kind of the way Vermont Health Connect is set up, but I would say that that's available provided that the present law stays the present law. If it gets tweaked, then, so for instance, there was a time when you provide the gold, that's it, that's your choice.
Yeah.
My Health Connect is set up so for the employee to have a choice now. It's kind of the intent of the My Health Connect. My Health Connect doesn't work, so we don't go through it, and we
Right.
deal with it a different way.
Yeah.
But that was the spirit of it. Doesn't necessarily mean that, I think that if we were to take that extra step, you're more in the spirit of it. I think that to come back to it, you can, I think that I have seen it enough that we're simply gonna offer the gold. We're not gonna give you anything back if you choose something less. You can go out and go ahead, choose the bronze,
Right.
go for it, but we're not gonna give you any money back. You know, we will put you into that and pay for it, but you're not getting anything in your pocket. And then anything above and beyond goes to, you can pay for it.
Right.
I do think that what you're talking about is in the spirit of it. I just don't think I don't think we're gonna do a good job at the moment
Sure.
for trying to explain that or to even, pull out the HSAs, et cetera.
Yeah. Um,
What constitutes a family?
A spouse, whatever that may look at, and children.
So 3.
What
Could
about
be.
a single parent?
Single parent with children is a whole other plan. And then there's just
Parent and child.
so you get parent and child, you have a parent so you have a single, you have a parent with a child or children,
Mhm.
you have just a husband and a spouse,
That'd be two-person.
and that would be a two-person, and then you have a husband, spouse with children, whether it be 1 or 6.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how big the family is, one
Doesn't
child or 6.
Correct.
Yeah. There's a lot of, the way you're talking, that isn't very fair either, is it?
Oh, I agree, It's,
Well,
there's-
I don't agree, actually.
okay. Well, and there's lots of slippery slopes there. with,
Yeah, a lot of, that's something we need to talk about more, I think, sometime.
Well, I'd just like to say it's good progress, thank you.
Yeah,
It's in the right
Matt, I
direction.
didn't hear you.
I just said it's good progress
Oh, good.
financially, thank you.
Yeah.
yes, thank you very much,
And
because
these are monthly, right?
Yes.
a savings of $45,000 is significant.
From what we had.
How about the school?
207.
What plan do they have?
So the school, so there is even you can tweak this even more, and I'm familiar with this as well, and it works pretty well. So I think what the school went to is, I don't know the exact plans, but I'm just gonna give you an example. So they went from, I think, like the platinum to, say, the silver, which went from a $200 deductible to like a $3,500 deductible or something to that effect. But then you can get an intermediary or a health benefit account or a health management account, whereas you get a third party that essentially works, is your does the financial transaction, and you essentially self-insure from the $200 to the new deductible $3,500 amount to kind of soften that blow. A better example would be, so for instance, when I was up in St. Johnsbury, they went from a plan that had a $1,000 deductible to $5,000 deductible, which brings your benefits premiums way down. And then they said, okay, employee, but you're not gonna lose that amount between 1,000 and 5,000. We're essentially, if you get to a point where you need a deductible payment or a deductible amount between 1,000 and 5,000, the town will pay you for that. They'll pay you based upon the premise that not everybody utilizes the deductible. What I found was there was 25% of the population that used all 5,000, used up the entire deductible amount, so it cost St. Johnsbury 4,000 between the 1,000 and 5,000.
Yeah.
There was 25% of the people that used it absolutely zilch, and then there was the remaining that fell somewhere in the spectrum, somewhere between. And so if there's an expense above their deductible, so let's just say they go into the hospital and they're like, okay, that's gonna be $4,000. And it's like, okay, well, I have a $1,000 deductible. They're like, okay, well, give me the $3,000, then they have a credit card, which is dispensed by this third party, that pulls money out of the town's account, which is set up specifically for this purpose. They use that, and then the expense goes out, and the town pays. So the premise is that you're paying a whole lot of premium for that $1,000 deductible, whereas most times people don't use it.
And did they do an analysis at the end of the year or after years to see how that came out?
I did it when I was there. I did it personally for the town because that's what I oversaw, and I found just that. I found that it was probably, we used up 50%,
There's a savings for the town.
there's a savings to the town.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it also gives the employees, again, that's a more complex system. I don't think we're quite there, but
I
it
think it would
is.
work better in a bigger group.
It works much better, it does work in a bigger group.
Well, can't we do a group with town employees and teachers, or no?
I don't think so.
Because everybody's a town employee. right?
I wouldn't even, it depends on what you're talking about. Are you talking about the plan, or are you talking about something like this? Because I wouldn't want to get into an accounting situation where we're taking money back and, I can't, it's like, okay, you need to put money into our account or something. That
I
would
think
just-
probably not, because the state's so involved in the education thing with all the money going back and forth. Probably
Yeah.
wouldn't work.
Would it work with other towns? Other towns' employees?
Again, I gotta ask though, what is it that you would want to work with the other towns?
Well-
There's really no, from the benefit point of view, the goal is a small business, we're going to get, it's the same premium, kind of
Gordon was
regardless.
saying this thing up in St. Johnsbury worked because you had a bigger group of employees.
Again, it would be a logistical nightmare to have,
Different towns.
because that money is coming out on an account, and then you've got to, okay, you had 3 employees, you need to pay X amount, you had 2 employees, you need to pay amount. We'd have to hire on a part-time person.
Martin could handle it.
Yeah, Mine can handle a lot, that one would just be more chaos in it.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
So you're moving in a direction, so you don't really need us to make a motion or anything. You're going from the platinum to the gold and going up in the percentage.
So this one was pretty par for course, but this is probably big enough that, at least a couple head nods would be
I'm
sufficient.
nodding. Are you nodding?
I'll nod, as I said, I'll nod now, but next year I'll come back and,
Yeah. I've heard that before at my office, actually, about the single and,
oh, this goes back to the late 80s.
yeah.
Is it a consensus there?
Yeah,
Yes.
sure it is.
Yep.
Another woman who's an office mate. And, she went to
Okay, so let's talk about the ambulance service.
There is a secondary question, but I'll come back to you folks with it.
Oh, on the insurance?
Yeah.
Another time?
Yeah.
Okay. So do we have something to sign on the ambulance contract, or are we not that far?
I have got that right here.
Have we signed this before?
I think
You
we do it every-
did.
I think we do it
Yes,
every year.
because it was kind of a funky,
Yeah, it seems like we
It was kind
We're
of,
responsible for everything.
well,
Yeah,
other than them responding, we are.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
their vehicle gets dirty, we pay it.
listen, that,
Here's the one you need to sign.
Are they always 3 years?
Last one was. Yeah, so I did ask, this one did raise a few eyebrows. You signed this one, might even have a date. Doesn't even, it's not even dated.
nobody filled in the date?
I can tell you that Tom White was still on it, as was Rick Waddle. Rick Waddle.
Who?
Richard,
Oh,
Oh, Richard Waddell.
Waddell was on the board.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
We can't negotiate with them, right?
what raised my eyebrows was, it's a 3-year term, and there's like, yeah, we'll let you know how much it is come December. I was like, well, wait a minute. So essentially, that is how it is, you know, this is the service contract. We figure this out each year, but I did take note, and he did kindly point out to me that there is a you can get out of it any time with 90 days notice. So if December they tell you something and it's too much and you want to go completely to Windsor, or you want to do something else, then you just politely say, okay, guys, that's too much this time, we're getting 90 days notice. So there is a rhyme or reason to it a little bit. He did say we're running about $34, I think, per capita. And he says he's trying hard to, he said they've been pretty static at that for a bit. And although he did say ultimately that rests with Phil Swanson and the select board when budget time comes.
How much of the town do they cover?
They just covered, I don't know the exact addresses, but they essentially cover the area closer to Woodstock. We have Hartford, and we also have Windsor that share in the burden.
So when we make an account, it's so much a person, how do we decide how many? Or is,
There are some,
I don't know how it works, I guess.
I'll have to double check that.
Or do we pay for the entire population of Hartland? And they know that they're only covering a certain area, is that?
So at rate number 2 there, of the geographic area covered, and I do know that this is somewhere, deep, dark file somewhere. Fee based on a per capita rate for the geographic area covered, which will be the same as is charged to all other member towns served. The population of the area served shall be established by Hartland upon consultation with Woodstock. I do know Bill knows it pretty well. I think John Sanders knows it. I'd have to, so there is a geographic boundary that Woodstock covers. I haven't been around long enough to know that.
This is different than that.
Ooh, so it is. This is what the other one says.
So that's interesting. Yeah, it's probably in there somewhere, but it's not number 2.
The only thing I see in there is that it says the town will provide a fire truck and all motor vehicle accidents. Well, the town doesn't have a fire department.
What?
That's pretty,
It's a volunteer fire department.
it's pretty standard operation these days, that the two roll at the same time.
So what do you mean?
The town of Hartland will provide a fire truck and all motor vehicle accidents.
Right, so what do you think it should say? The Heartland Volunteer
I guess
Fire
so, yeah.
Department will provide a fire truck?
I don't think you're gonna get out of the fire truck not responding.
No, he's saying the town of Hartland, the wording there on number 9, it shouldn't be the town of Hartland, it should be the,
Hartland Volunteer Fire Department.
The town's volunteer fire department or something.
Mm.
I would argue it's still the Hartland Fire Department.
see now, this, the use of the Woodstock Rescue will be charged to the accident victims, but upon failure to collect, the town of Hartland will be responsible for same.
Yep.
Has that,
Yeah, I mean, Windsor's the same way. I don't know about Hartford. I know when I was over in Norwich, Hanover did the same thing to Norwich. I don't know if it's in the last agreement, but the language is pretty, it's not surprising to me.
okay.
I think we need to send one to Woodstock.
Send
What comes around goes around.
an
If the
uninsured
If the Hartland Rescue Squad goes to Woodstock, shouldn't we bill Woodstock?
Do they go over there though?
They may.
Yeah.
But if it's normal.
I don't particularly like it, but either way, you're gonna end up sharing the cost, because if their delinquencies go to a certain point, they're gonna need more money to cover and offset the expenses, which is just gonna be shared in your per capita cost. Unfortunately, it's gonna circulate. I don't particularly like it, but
How
they've
about
kind of
this,
smartened up.
number 4, town of Hartland is responsible to ensure payment of ambulance services received by Hartland residents when these services begin at the Ottauquechee Health Center. Well, wouldn't the patient's insurance cover that?
I don't know, but I can see how somebody from Hartland might end up in the health center, and the doctors are worried, you're gonna get in an ambulance,
Right, so
go to Hanover, so
don't
we have to pay.
the
If they-
insurance companies pay
well-
that? Or no?
Maybe, but if they don't, we have to pay. The town's gonna have to pay. That's what it comes down to.
Oh.
There's no way Woodstock is gonna get left holding the bag, apparently, on many of these things. I think this is how it has to be, though. I don't think it's any,
Yeah.
I don't think this is unusual.
The Fast Squad, Matt, I think to answer your question, I think that's the question to begin with, on number 2, is our crew rolls, and usually when they can respond, gets there before the ambulance. So I think the intent is that Hartland Fast Squad respond while Woodstock is en route or is responding, kind of a co-respondent. We do that for Windsor, we do that, we generally, Hartland Fast Squad generally responds prior to the ambulance getting there. I think at times that's probably a struggle these days.
You ready to sign?
I suppose. You're saying there's no other alternative.
Yeah, I
No.
hope so.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, whatever lawyer wrote this up covered all the bases and,
For Woodstock.
for Woodstock.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, we have a choice. We can get into the ambulance business.
Mm.
You can sign it. If, I will ask him about the per capita question, though. It doesn't specify, you know, based upon the agreed upon boundaries between Woodstock and.
I suspect the way it works
So I
is-
think that is, you know, a little susceptible, but, so I would, if you want to sign it and he tells me something that puts me at ease, then fine. If not, you know, you may want to have language that specifies, that recognizes that there are boundaries.
Yeah, I suspect that we're paying $34 for everybody that lives in town.
No.
I don't think
that-
so.
No, that
You don't think
other,
so?
where did you get that text that you read before?
From the last agreement,
Yeah, how come that's not in this one?
What is that?
because they have tightened the language. It's, they have tweaked it. It's
Because
much more-
that, I
much more
felt good
specific.
with that language.
Yeah, I would,
I need that.
I don't know, again, there's a map somewhere, and, you know, like Bill knows it, and he knows the boundaries between, and there's a little overlap there, depending, you know, depending on
Or the geographic area code.
where the call comes in.
See, that says the per capita is only in that geographical.
That's what it says, you're right.
But to,
Hartland,
in my mind, the fact that it's not in this one
That's interesting.
puts us at a
So-
disadvantage somehow.
So how are we determining how much we pay them here?
They're saying they're determined on January
yeah.
1st or 15th. Yeah.
See, it's different in this one. May request to have volunteer fire department.
Oh.
Hmm?
Yeah, I don't really like this. It says the town of Woodstock will charge a head fee based on the population, based on VLCT figures. Well, that does sound like it could be.
Where'd you get that language?
That's the
you
one,
want us to
the
sign.
current one. The latest one. That was in our packet.
Okay,
Yeah, I don't like that.
you know what, tonight, you were just, got it, you know, why don't you hold off?
Okay.
And I will
alright.
ask him about that one, so I don't have to put in the minutes that you approved it and then somewhere explain that it's been disapproved.
Yeah, so we're not gonna approve it.
So we will table it. How's that?
Sounds like a good idea.
For clarification.
I like the language of the old one better.
Yeah, and since it's changed, I'm a little suspicious. That's not in our favor. Yeah. You know what? Yeah.
And they don't tell us ahead how much it's gonna be.
I
Did-
don't.
Did they say in the old one?
No, they're
They
gonna
did
tell us.
not either say the old one,
They're gonna tell us all before January 15th.
which is what I looked at them. That's what caught my eye.
Well, don't you need to know how to budget it?
Maybe that's when they're.
It says in one of them that it would be by December 15th.
Oh,
They would
that's-
provide the number. I
No.
asked them to do it earlier, but December 15th is a reasonable
It says January 15th.
time frame. Is that the new one, or is that the
Yes,
old?
the new one
Then
is
the old
January
one.
15th.
Old one says December.
Oh.
So I'll have them change their, or discuss changing the per capita, describing the
Yeah.
population area serviced.
And the date, if they can do it, month back, a month earlier.
Yeah, because we have to, have our budget included. They put that in our budget.
Well, that may be okay, the way that you're getting, although I don't know what VLCT knows that we don't know. Do they have maps of every town and all the houses and how many people live in them? Probably.
I think they have the census numbers. I don't know what they-
Okay, so there's the old one.
This is the old one.
There's a copy of the new one. We've all got a copy.
We weren't born yesterday, you know?
You left yourself wide open on that one. I had to bite that tongue pretty hard.
Thank you, thank you.
I held
You
on.
almost needed an ambulance service.
If you had followed through, Dave, you would have owed us all some chocolate, but me especially, I'm sure.
Okay, that's kind of the other things. We got some,
Got more freaking stuff than. Do it. Agreement can go that way.
I mean, notes in here somewhere.
Is the school PALS program what Martha's doing at the Hartland Elementary School? She was trying to twist my arm to come and read one day a week or for an hour or two to some kid. Should be assigned, I guess. Why do they have kids at the school? Is that what this program is?
Are the Windsor
know.
County Partners or the one specified in there?
Where are you?
Yeah,
I've got so many
where are we?
papers
There's
here, I don't
there's
know.
so many layers.
He
here for
skipped
me
the
to-
communication, I think.
Yeah, sorry, I'm jumping. Oh, this is not on the agenda. Okay.
You want to say anything about your notes?
So, yeah, quite a bit going on here. So I spent a fair amount of time putting this one together. I had some feedback. My comment would be, yes, the glass is half full. No, I'm not planning on going anywhere. However, what I was reinforcing here, and I just felt it was time to put this back out there. I say it often enough, but, you know, I think that, you know, coming in and looking at this and going, you know, even talking about, you know, the comments about the structure of the town and kind of putting you know, a professionality or kind of a discipline to it. Since we have been working towards a fair amount, you know, in my mind, I feel as though there was a fair amount to take on and a fair amount to go. And, you know, when I talk about a fair amount, you know, the finance office certainly was, you know, some complexities there. Certainly have our complexities with delinquent taxes. Certainly some complexities going on in the Lister's office, and certainly we've got, you know, a lot to concentrate on as far as buildings and roads. So it's kind of a whole ball of wax. And I'm just kind of reinforcing that, yeah, I think that at the end of the day, you know, from where I am, you know, we certainly have kind of, or I'm working on kind of a different direction, not a big one, but certainly a tweak to the model that I think that we've been working on. And I think that I'm certainly not here to simply, you know, say what has been done in the past is bad. I'm not simply here to say that, you know, the group or people involved has been bad, or even, you know, what was working for you was bad. I just think that at this point, we've kind of run our course, and certain things need to be addressed in order for us to move forward effectively. And it's not the first time I've said this. I certainly took the time to, I think, outline the things that we've been working on and the successes that we've had. But I think you know, what I'm really saying here is that, you know, this is a process that will continue to take time and will take time. You know, delinquencies will not disappear overnight. Even though we've taken and gone through this, and 6 or 7 people going up to tax sale. Even with Martin up there, we still have some things to straighten out. In the finance office, I certainly think that Doug is working hard, but is going to take, and I remind him of this quite a bit, that I fully expect us to take more than one cycle on the reappraisal before we get everything, we flesh that out and we're feeling good about things. I would say the same thing about the roads. I think that it's going to take time to, do the ditching and the berms and tinker with what we need to. And the buildings also is a time, just based upon what we have to do, the money that we have to do it, and the ability to kind of concentrate on it. So the message really is that I feel good about what we've been doing over the past 15 months, although I think that we've got a fair amount to go and it's going to take time. The other aspect of this is to essentially acknowledge that, based upon what we've got going on and the ability to focus on the bigger picture, a lot of that smaller stuff is going to be delegated to, people that, the appropriate people, being Martin, being Doug, being Bill, I throw Nancy in there and even Lauren Clyde, because at the end of the day, it needs to come together as one full working, cog, although I'm not gonna, get too involved in the everyday workings of what they're doing. I just can't concentrate on what I find to be really probably the most costly things from a big picture that is affecting us. When you're talking $500,000 in delinquencies, hundreds of $1,000s in assessed value and other things, it's just, that's from a time management point of view, that's where it needs to be. Also on the time, conversation, it will also take time for these, the Bills and the Dougs and the Martins and the Johns to do what they need to do. I see room for improvement across the board. And, some of this is some newfound freedom, and I think that certainly each one of them have made mistakes, and they've costed us. But I think at the end of the day, in order for us to get to where we need to go, we need to have people we can depend on that have accumulated that experience. Hopefully, what that leaves us to do is to concentrate on some of those bigger picture items, such as, the development that's occurring, ambulance services, fire services, police services, health issues. Won't get into details, are pretty personal and pretty sensitive, but we've had some ongoing issues the last week that, bore some fruit today. These are health officer, health type issues that I think that we need to be a little bit more aware of. And, so I think that there's bigger issues that, as a board and as a town manager, needs our attention. And I think that what I'm saying is that that's where I think our attention should be. Again, the last sentence I think sums it up. I think that, we've got all these things going on. I think we've made some great progress, and I think that I think we will hit full stride, but certainly we're not close at this point. That's not to say we're awful. We're not saying we're ugly. We're incompetent. I'm just saying I think there's a whole lot of room here to go before we really get to where we want to be. And I would take that as a positive more, certainly more than a negative.
I certainly think we're moving in a positive direction. I'm really happy with all the hires. It's really great. So.
It's just not I do the managerial updates. I give you, we plowed this, or we did, dug this or something. I just felt as though it was kind of time to get back to, yes, as a town manager, as an update, this is what we're doing, this is where I think we need to continue to go. And these are some of our growing pains, and I think that, you know, I put it out there to share and, you know, for feedback and really to generate, you know, maybe conversation that, you know, maybe we need to have, you know, as we progress, certainly through the budget, you know, year that we're gonna go through in the next 4 to 6 weeks, certainly is kind of time to correspond with that. But certainly, I think there's some discussions out there that I think we can probably continue to have as we progress here.
Well, we tried to have a conversation.
I know. You forgot the pizza, Mary. I think that was the problem. Actually, no, you had it.
Well, that was actually a great night, because we heard from, you know, the citizens what was on their mind without us realizing we were doing that.
We did not accomplish the goal. They can come to, we have meetings twice a month.
I think the writing was on the wall that they were feeling not heard. And you know, is it our responsibility to sort of change that? I mean, you're right, the meetings are open, people could come, you know, but I'd rather we didn't criticize that night as not being a total loss. I mean, the loss for me, yes, was real, because I really feel that going into this budget cycle, I don't really know what our targets are for the coming year.
No, I mean, that's a great idea to have that kind of meeting. You know, we could schedule them 10 times a year, and if, you know, people felt the need to voice themselves. But we, as a group that we're responsible to lead, we need to have time where the 5 of us, plus Dave, can talk.
Sure, but it's not legal unless you tell me.
No, but I'm not saying we should do it out of the public view, but if every time we try to meet and talk and everybody shows up, we will never, I mean, how do we do this? We still
Well,
need that type of meeting, is my point.
Yeah, sure, I don't think any of us expected the turnout that we had, and we made some decisions to open up the meeting right away. You know, if we wanted to do that type of thing again, we could look at other formats where we would say, you know, we're going to have a discussion first, and if you guys want to stay put for the hour or two, and then we'll open it up to comments on our comments. You know, or it could be just more structured. You could sort of say, tonight we're talking about roads only. But you know, how much time do we have is also comes into play as well. We can't have an extra meeting a month to all the time.
No, we can't, I know, but
But I again, I don't, I agree with you totally.
yeah.
You know, and at the same time, I also realized that it was a real eye-opener to see that when people did show up, they had stuff on their mind, you know.
So we're still at square one in terms of us figuring out where we need to go and how we're gonna get there. You know, so how do we do that? And when do we do that?
I think that the budget discussion is going to touch on some of this. I think that it's going to, you know, what we can, I'm not sure we can afford it, but some of the, obviously, it's my presentation to the select board, so it's my, you know, what I see as goals for the town, and, you know, I'm presenting that to you, which is gonna be skewed towards the highway side. You know, there's not, you know, there's just not, you know, nothing glamorous in the budget being proposed. It's all kind of nuts and bolts stuff. I do think at some point in time, there are issues out there, or there is, and again, I've kind of, you know, tilted the wheel a little bit in, you know, from a direction that I think that the town and the board has gone traditionally. But I'm not sure, you know, and I think that a lot of that, I think there's some self-awareness of, you know, of that. I'm not sure, you know, again, you know, we've had this discussion going into the retreat. You know, Gordon, I think you said it where, you know, you're 5 individuals and, you know, there's a good chance, you know, you 5 don't, you know, add up to the same thought. And I would agree with that, but at some point, you know, I think that there does need to be some general, you know, thought process as to the direction that, you know, the future, you know, the larger picture, you know, and, you know, something, you know, that lies even above me, and that's, you know, some of these, and it, you know, ultimately the discussion could be, you know what, you know, we don't want to spend the money, we like the way things are, and we're just gonna keep it right as we are. That's fine, or you're gonna start dabbling in some of these things out there that, you know, some of the underlying health issues that I see, you know, some of the costs to the town that are out there, some of the things that I think compound stuff, such as the delinquencies and you know, the issues that we have assessing, and you know, an understanding of how we might want to address that going forward. And I think that there's just a, you know, do you want to sit back and I mean, I'll be honest with you, I've been here in the Upper Valley enough now, and I have seen parts of the Upper Valley. Change has come to the Upper Valley, and some have already changed. My comment would be that I think that no doubt will Hartland change. I think that you're gonna face some things over the next 5, 10, 15 years. And I think you can ask yourself whether you wanna sit back and just, you know, let that affect you, or whether there's certain components of that you may want to try and shape, you know, in a premeditated type of way. It can be either way, you can decide either way, but, you know, I think that there should be, you know, some sort of an understanding how that's shaping a lot of what we're dealing with now, and you know, it doesn't even have to be that grand. You know, some of the economic factors that may be affecting Windsor and Springfield, I think, are affecting us. And whether we want to sit back and let it affect us, or whether we want to take a more proactive stand and at least take some steps to understand maybe how that's affecting us, and you know, whether we think that's good or bad, and how you might want to move forward. But, you know, those are just some examples. But, you know, it's pretty broad-ranging stuff, but it is affecting, it then trickles down, affects me, obviously affects Doug, affects Clyde, Martin, Bill, Nancy, you know, John in particularly is affected. So, you know, we can't always grasp it, but certainly I think that we're grasping it on, you know, at the lower level.
Hartland's already changed. It's already changed. When Tom was on the school board, I think he said like 20% of the kids had free lunch, and now, what is it, 50%?
50%, 40, 49.
That's a big change, and it speaks volumes about what's going on. So, yeah, I think we need to figure something
I
out.
don't know if the rules are the same for getting the free lunch.
I doubt that they would make them any easier, because that's money out, so
Oh, I bet you they are made easier.
they're not made easier, the rules. Is that what you're saying? Or you think it's,
That it's easier to get
really?
help.
I suspect it is.
It has to be.
Well, I think the change really is that, that, you know, in the school, that education always is evolving, you know, and you know, some years ago, people didn't sort of equate lack of good diet with learning, and now they do, you know.
Yeah?
So,
That's right.
and then this, you know, kids were not identified as special needs, they were identified as different. Now they're special needs, and, you know, that requires more, you know. And I think, you know, when I built in 1979, I never thought that some people would be building up the ridge from me, that, you know, there was more stone sticking out of the ground than there was trees, and people are building there now, you know. So I think
Yeah.
regardless of what topic you choose, you know, schools or building or, you know, road usage, you know, more cars, you know, it's just, whoever would have thought that the Simon Pierce complex would have been kind of a connection point between there and Harpoon, and, you know, visitors all the time leave Harpoon and go to Simon Pierce right up the Queechee Road. I mean, those are now destinations that didn't exist in the 80s, you know. Simon Pierce was just beginning. So, the change is happening, the farm changes, you know, you know, I don't think we could sit and have a crystal ball and say what it's gonna be like in 10 years or 15 years, but we do have to stay abreast of things.
On a specific note, a couple things here. Getting close to the Matt Dunn easement, to having him sign. State now wants us to change the language in the Charlie Spear easement. Bill Gauthier now owns BG, so that will be an added step, but I think the benefit there is the communication is much easier to have with Bill than trying to communicate with Charlie, who's over in Maine. Highway, during the project, the ditching project over on Webster Road, it wasn't part of the original part of that project, but there's a fairly large, lengthy culvert over there. Have found out that it was severed by VTEL several years ago, and really is junk at this point in time. I did had some testy conversations with VTEL. They are going to, that's going to be changed out on Wednesday. They're going to have somebody on hand in case something happens to the cable, but they will pay for that to swap that out. And the engineer who's working on the intersection project came in person to kind of look at their work and to agree that, yes, they will pay for it. So that will happen on Wednesday. Rain is just continuing to be a big problem. We're looking at several weeks now. Rain again through the end of this week. I'm thinking into next. Two roads in particular, only because we haven't really been able to touch them in a while, Jennyville and Rice Road. Trying to get to those before the snow flies. We got a couple others that we could have done better, but to get back to them would be nice. That would be Brothers Road and Mount Hunger along with Gilson. But certainly, if the weather cooperates, we'd like to get back to Jennyville and Rice. A couple other things. I got a phone call from the state of Vermont. We never closed out the Jennyville FEMA project from like Irene.
Really?
So we have like potentially 30 grand kicking around out there for us to get back.
That will get?
Yeah, as long as we provide the proper documentation and we can get it closed out. So it was a $66,000 project. They've reimbursed us for like 32, so there's a potential for the difference there. Again, it's always an interesting process with FEMA, but I don't know how timely it will be, but it's theirs for us to close out and get.
Have we finished what you were working on this summer?
So lo and behold, I believe today? Friday, we got a $61,000 check from Department of Public Safety, which we believe was from FEMA. It's the right amount. It's from the Department of Public Safety, so it leads me to believe it's from FEMA, or it comes through the state. You get a check from the treasurer. It never really identifies what it's for. It just lands, and there's a check for $61,000, and you scratch your head, and you're like, oh, Not sure what that's for, but I'm pretty sure it's from the
You
FEMA.
never reject them though, right?
No, we,
Deposit it and ask afterwards.
Yeah, yeah.
we still have like $10,000-$12,000 kicking around out there from the Hartland culverts, that was lagging. And when we kind of took this, we originally were told most likely we wouldn't get reimbursement, but we went ahead and rolled the dice anyways. And it looks as though we're gonna get reimbursement on that as well. 21 house has been winterized. It looks as though perhaps the rec center situation, the legal discussions that we were having revolving around the rec center, it looks as though that is potentially wrapping up. It's been sent to the plaintiff attorney, and it's in her court. We also received word on one of our property tax appeals, only a portion. This is how time flies in the court system. If you recall, one of the property owners took us to court before the BCA.
Yes.
The court has ruled that, yeah, that's not the right way to go. It needs to happen after the BCA. So that is round one of several, but Superior Court has ruled on that. Still a while to go on the rest. Fire truck that we voted on and purchased is close to coming to us. Some of the discussions we were just talking about for large size issues, that Mount Ascutney Preventive Partnership discussion, there is going to be a second meeting on December the 10th. It's a Monday night upstairs in Damon Hall. And lastly, we continue to work on the budget. I suspect that is not going to be for next Monday, which would have been a special meeting, which puts us to the 19th, which could potentially be a long meeting, along with Eastman Road, which is before that. At the very least, I think you should probably keep the 26th open. I'd like to see some sort of nod that, yeah, we can make the 26th, because if for whatever reason, and I got to admit, the tax sale and a couple of things have really kind of taken some attention here. So if for whatever reason I can't put it forth for the 19th, it should be put forth no later than the 26th. And even if we put forth the budget on the 19th, I think you're going to need the 26th for discussion or secondary follow-up presentation. So I would keep the 26th.
I was going to suggest maybe just do half of it on the 19th if we do it, but maybe just the general fund or something, but it's
Yep.
entirely up to you. I know that after a certain amount of time we get glazed over.
It's gonna be bad. It's gonna be bad after getting here at 3:30 to look at that
Yeah.
road.
So that, I didn't have that down, so that's 3:30?
I think
At Eastman Road on the 19th, correct. Site visit on the 19th, public hearing here at 4:30. And I expect to have some discussion on that. I think there'll be a few people here for that. Before you even get to deliberative session type stuff.
Well, can we just have nothing else on the agenda on the 19th except the budget and then the public sculpture decision? Are there other things that we have to, Three Corners intersection?
Yeah, you guys need to tackle that. That's kind of
Yeah, that's
intertwined.
That's gonna be on there too.
Oh my God. All right, maybe we should have pizza that night.
You know, I'm just because of where I'm at, I'm semi-okay with the budget on the 26th, but it's like 2 weeks later than I would normally like to put it out, so, you know, it needs to be finalized.
Can you give us the paper part of it? So we can be,
Well, yeah, that's the part, I mean, the presentation for me really is not any big deal for me. It's the paper, is making sure that everything is correct.
I just thought if we had something to mull over and look at, thought through, and
I'll get that out as soon as I can. I would like to present that on the 19th. I feel as though it may have to happen on the 26th. Either way, I think you're gonna have to have some consecutive meetings in there.
Yeah. Actually, yeah.
I don't, if I can't, I could put it out, I think I put it out a week earlier than last, or going into the last one, but, it is just a matter of making sure that, everything kind of ties in there.
Okay, we've got, also got a Merit Campbell request.
I'm sorry, Gordon, did you?
So we have a Merit Campbell request.
Okay. I also just wanted to follow up with the question, where did things stand with the Johannesson Legal Trail?
Well, that's something else we can, you need to be enlightened on a little bit.
Okay. Okay.
Is that it, Dave? On your list?
That's all I got.
Anybody else got anything you wanna bring up?
Anything for, any interest in the 21 house?
Quiet.
The whole market's down. The whole housing market has been down for the last 2 months,
Oh, really?
because the mortgage rates have gone up.
They're not even that high, are they?
No, they're not.
They have gone up.
Yeah, they have, but if you read the data, the housing market is in the slow.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not I'm seeing a lot of the same for sale signs out there, almost since we put that one out, almost since last spring.
Yeah.
Some of these houses there's been a couple that have
Yeah.
transferred, but not, back in the spring, they were talking about how on fire everything was. And, I'm not seeing,
Mine doesn't bring me the PTRs like it would before.
Okay.
Really, two very quick things. One, I wasn't here for the Energy Committee presentation, but as I understand it, it was 20 or 30 people there, and it was well attended.
Oh, they did? Wow,
Yeah.
that's interesting.
Yeah, and I would like to, maybe as we go through the budget process, to see if we choose which of our town buildings might be the next to receive some of our money that we could use the Energy Committee to guide an audit through or something, and really charge them with, what would result in a savings to the town over time. I don't want to do an energy sort of
Yeah.
thing if it's not going to sort of reduce
They
it.
were pretty interested in the library.
The library, if the rec center needs our attention, so I agree with the library, that's what they voiced. The other thing which just struck me when we were talking about the art projects is, we heard a presentation from the Community Arts Association. I'm not sure what their official title is, when they were talking about the lighting up in the Demon Hall. But if we do have future requests for art in town, maybe we could actually ask that organization to give us some feedback of whether or not the thing is offensive or
That's a really good idea.
neutral.
That's a really good idea.
Yeah.
Well, we could tell that wasn't offensive.
No, I'm not, I agree, but it would be using people whose theoretical interest and maybe background is in the
Yeah,
arts to sort of
absolutely.
make some
Yeah,
decisions for us and for
Yeah.
recommendations, not recommendations.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good idea.
Okay, so I guess we're done. We're done.
We're done, but.
Right.
Okay, so don't disappear.
No.